Good evening and welcome to KC Sports Tonight, the inaugural edition of the 2026 version of KC Sports Tonight. Happy New Year. I'm Gabe Swartz, joined by Neal Jones. And Neal, we rang in the new year.
This is the new Neal.
The new Neal, yes. A nicer, newer Neal for 2026.
I'm going to be nicer to my coworkers, particularly you. I've called you names in the past, but I should say I called them to your face and have called it to your family. But they were innocent, nice names. I called you Timmy the intern for a long time because I thought you were an intern and I wasn't sure about your name. and then after that, I've called. I've tried to be nicer to you, and I think I've fostered your career right in a lot of ways, right? Giving you great advice that you haven't taken.
Sometimes.
But you came up with some great topics.
Yeah.
Mahomes
the newer,
tonight.
nicer Neal we're gonna see how he approaches this topic of a sad Patrick Mahomes, not because of anything that the Kansas City Chiefs have done as of late,
right,
even though you can say that the way that they've played as of late has been sad to watch. But his alma mater this morning played in the Orange Bowl, lost 23-0 after dominating the Big 12 this season.
What do you take of that?
What I take of it is that there has been a lot made of the monetary investment that Texas Tech has put into their football program, and I think unfairly because it feels like they're pointing out, specifically broadcasters, people who are calling these games are saying, oh, Texas Tech has invested all this kind of money in these rosters that they've got, and you can see it. Their defensive line had tons of talent on it. I think Chiefs fans we'll talk about the Chiefs hangover and what we're going to be watching for in January. Well, one of the things that's happening if you're really locked into the Chiefs more than anything else in terms of the college football outcomes is we're watching games like Miami, Ohio State last night and looking at draft prospects. We're looking at Texas Tech today and draft prospects. David Bailey, defensive end for Texas Tech, was a guy who they paid a lot of money to come play at Texas Tech. All of this is to say these teams that are non-traditional powers who are in the playoff and getting this new spotlight. We're seeing it with Indiana today as well, and they're currently beating Alabama.
Who would have believed? Think about that for a moment.
You have to invest to be good on the offensive and defensive line, but if you don't have a quarterback, and Indiana last year, they got embarrassed by Notre Dame in the first round of the playoff, had a decent average quarterback. In the playoff, that it gets exposed. In the playoff today, I think Texas Tech, that got exposed. And I think that Tech fans were probably wishing that Patrick Mahomes had an extra year of eligibility to go out there for them.
So Dan Lanning, the coach at Oregon, who might be one of the most interesting interviews in all of college football because he's very, very cocky from the Kansas City area, right?
Mm-hmm.
He did his high school coaching when he first came out. He was a coach here in the Kansas City area. He's not shy about saying what he thinks. And a lot of what he says, I think, is ridiculous. And a lot of what he says, I think, is really, really smart. But he has kind of been talking a little bit about Tech, and they've talked. Look, he's at a school in Oregon that was the forerunner of having a huge cash infusion. They built the finest facilities. Their football stadium's still substandard. But in all other ways, and where did that come from? From Phil Knight.
Nike.
From Nike. All that Nike money in Eugene, Oregon has been funneled to the Oregon program. He's a former distance runner at Oregon. At first, they put their money into the track and field stadium, and guess where almost always the Olympic trials are held? At Oregon, because they've got the great climate, and they have great fans up there for distance running and for the track and field, and they also have great facilities that he spent money on. And so he bought their way in, their locker room, everything they did, the multiple jerseys that they wore, they were on the forefront of that. Everybody else, including Texas Tech and Baylor and everybody else, they were following the trail blazed by Phil Knight in Oregon. And most of us are looking like, okay, if you want to invest your money in that and you put your money where your mouth is, congratulations, as long as it's within the rules. Well, nobody is suggesting that Texas Tech broke the rules. They broke the mold. There's difference. They're not
Yeah.
breaking the rules,
Yeah.
but they are changing the way they're doing it. They had an uncapped year, and they took advantage of that by throwing huge money at their football team, huge money at their softball pitcher. And by the way, that got them in the College World Series.
Nearly got them a
softball
national championship in that sport. Yeah, they were a couple plays away from winning that.
And you know what they said what did you learn from this in the press conference afterwards? What did you learn from this? And their AD said we needed to buy more players. Not that we blew that. We spent all this money on this pitcher that we got from the young lady from Topeka, just a great pitcher. She was pitcher of the year at Stanford. Then she takes the money and runs, and who can blame her? And their argument wasn't we're not backing down. No, we should have bought more players around her. And so I don't see that changing. As long as the rules are in place to do this, I think that they're going to do it. And again, NIL money is uncapped. That's not the cap you hear about, that $20.5 million. That's in revenue sharing. Schools can only share but they can share $20.5 million with their athletes, and they can break it up any way they want. It can all be basketball, be football, it can be men, whatever. Each school handles it differently. But on the NIL, as long as you adhere to the rules and get it cleared by the clearinghouse, you can pay anybody what you want.
Yeah, which is why I think even though our conversation is about Patrick Mahomes and him being sad about his alma, I think we
need to both make sure that we tell people we are not making fun of him.
No,
we feel his pain. We love our teams too.
I appreciate that he.
Me
I
too.
think it's admirable that he still cares about his alma mater in a way that a lot of athletes. They move on and they don't care. He clearly cares. He has a NIL program. He
had to be at that game. Surely he was at that game.
I don't think he did just because of the injury. But I'm sure that he was watching. I'm sure that he was not super thrilled by the outcome.
Okay, you understand that if he flies to Miami to cover the game, to go to the game, he's not on Southwest making six connections like you and me.
I understand. I just think that he probably.
It's probably safer not to. When you have surgery, it's probably safer not to be in a pressurized
I'm sure
cabin.
he wanted to go.
No, I bet you're right.
But I think that the takeaway from this, if we're talking winners and losers in college football, as today progresses and such, well, the SEC's a loser. The Big 12, I think the Big 12 is a loser not because Texas Tech looks awful. I think the Big 12 is a loser because you see – if you're all of the non-Texas Tech or BYU programs, we saw the flaws that BYU had against Texas Tech in particular because they didn't have a great quarterback, they didn't have a great passing attack, all those kinds of things. The Big 12 as a whole, Texas Tech lost one game this year, and they lost to the one team that had a quarterback in this conference that people said, oh, he might have a chance to be an NFL quarterback on Sundays, Sam Leavitt, when he was healthy for ASU.
And he's leaving the league. And otherwise, Texas Tech ran through the Big 12. They crushed KU. They crushed K-State. They crushed Utah, who went and crushed Nebraska, as you've pointed out 100 times to Brad Stevens, despite your New Year's resolution to be nicer to him. All of these things. I pointed that out one time, and I was reading what you wrote for me.
There you go. But I think Tech is a winner of this because they can point to Indiana and what they're doing to Alabama today, where they got a quarterback in the transfer portal. They got a guy who is probably going to be a top pick, if not the number one pick. He won the Heisman, Fernando Mendoza. If Texas Tech goes out this offseason and they say, you know what, investing in our roster makes a lot of sense, let's invest at quarterback as well make sure that this doesn't happen again.
Do you remember
it's going to be scary for the Big 12.
Do you remember Nick Saban? Nick Saban, he won national championships by virtue of having great depth. He signed a bunch of great linemen, offense and defensive linemen. He was he signed really good coordinators. He was one of the first guys to bring in former head coaches who had had successful runs, who had lost their jobs. He brought them in and said, scout us, look at us every week, and then make a report to me about what we are doing that can be better. And then but the last component with that was they got exposed a little bit because they were winning with guys like A.J. McCarron.
Yep.
A.J. McCarron, from all accounts, great leader, great guy, had the respect of the locker room. people felt like he'd earned his position, but he wasn't a playmaker.
Yeah.
And they when Oklahoma played them in the Sugar Bowl, it was like a joke. They were like, look, we're going to try to get a lead and make them play catch up, which they did because Alabama's defense was not set up to play against a spread offense. And Oklahoma's going up and down the field with guys no one had ever heard of, 3-star guys. Some of them ended up playing in the NFL at the receiver position. And they won because Alabama couldn't play catch-up. They couldn't execute the passing game when they needed to. They didn't have a guy that could run around and make plays. It's the same lesson that Tom Osborne had to learn with Nebraska, early 90s. These guys were running, we're going to hand off to our I-back. We're going to dominate the line of scrimmage with our offensive line. We might throw 10 passes a game, 7 passes a game, all on play action to our tight end or throw to our fullback. We're going to have great wing backs. We're going to surround these caretaker quarterbacks with really good players, and we're going to win with that and defense. And I'll tell you, when Nebraska started winning national championships, when they brought in playmakers at quarterback like Tommy Frazier, who could make 2 or 3 guys miss and rip off a long run himself. If you were keen on the I-back, he'd get you. And we saw the same thing with Alabama. They started bringing in Jalen Hurts, who was good but not great, but then Tua and all these other guys who've now gone on to play in the NFL. They can execute. They can run around and make plays, and I think that's what Tech's going to have to do. That's what BYU's going to have to do. Kansas State thought they had it. We'll find out if they can bring that out in Avery Johnson with their new head coach who has coached that position and played. He knows how to utilize, presumably at least. We presume that he knows how to utilize a guy that's got the skill set of an Avery Johnson. Avery Johnson, I thought, gave them a chance to be successful, but by all accounts, they didn't have talent around him. Yeah. Jace Brown was the only guy that seemed to make big plays. They had a good running back, and what do you think happened with him? What's going to happen with their running back position?
I think that the whole roster is going to get overturned, and that's just a product of what college football's at this point. And it sounds like Austin
Iowa State's
Romaine,
got 16 guys on their roster right now.
It's not very many.
I think it's 16.
It's barren up there in Ames, and in K-State, Austin Romaine, it sounds like he is a target for Texas Tech to go and poach out of the transfer portal. KU today lost Trey Lathan, who is their leading tackler from last season. He said that he's going into the transfer portal.
Yeah, but you know what? That doesn't necessarily mean they leave. We need to point that out. There have been some big-time guys who entered the transfer portal. It's like, let's go up Periscope and look around, and now people can call us or call our agent or call our uncle or whoever handles our stuff, and then they end up coming back. And that's something we have seen the last 2 years where you're like, okay, well, that means he's gone. Well, he didn't leave. And end up being big-time players at their schools. So it's not automatic, but it's certainly a warning sign. You know, if it's a little like you're dating the same girl for 4 years, and the next thing you know, she's thinking about going to a party at the Theta House at KU with someone else. I mean, that's pretty scary, isn't it?
Yeah, there you go. Other losers.
Okay, was that mean
the SEC?
Is that the new? Is that?
I'm keeping it moving, Neal.
Okay, so I'm just trying. Was that over the line?
No, that's fine. That's fine. Losers.
Okay.
The SEC, your school, Oklahoma,
big loser.
Up 17-0.
A home playoff game.
Blows a playoff game to a team that is now down 31-3.
And let me ask you a question: does Oklahoma have a top shelf quarterback? I don't think we can judge. Their offensive line's worse than the Chiefs.
There you go.
And their receiving core is substandard. They only had 2 guys who could really play. So I don't know that that's why it's hard to judge quarterbacks, as you know. I mean, look how many quarterbacks fail their first NFL stop because they're in Cleveland or in a market like Carolina where everybody fails, and then they get out and they're like, oh my gosh, Danny Dimes. I'm making fun of him when he's a Giant. He goes to Indianapolis, and he looks like he might be a player.
Yeah. It all changes depending on situation. I'm moving forward with final college football thought. I think that I would love to see Oregon win with Lanning for just the fact that he's from around here. I think that is the last thing to
well,
there's not a lot of other things locally tying us to any of these teams.
Who are the jerks that we need to root against? A lot of people think that Dan Lanning's a jerk because he's so cocky.
I think Ole Miss is actually something that you can root for after
How do you root for them?
Because Lane Kiffin left them.
And who's left behind? The people that Lane Kiffin's best buddies are there running the thing now.
It's an odd situation, but if Georgia goes down the SEC, you're down to number 6 Ole Miss as your last chance, and
I think Ole Miss is good. I think that quarterback can make plays. They got a great offense in terms of what they're doing. We all know the former head coach, that was his offense.
Yeah.
And he wasn't the OC, but that was his offense. It's a little bit like the Chiefs. Andy Reid's not the OC, but Andy Reid's over there with a card going, okay,
yep,
Matt, send this play in.
Yep. That's certainly the case. It'd be interesting to see how that one goes tonight in New Orleans. And we'd be remiss if we don't mention Mark Pallis was a very happy man down in Arlington last night.
And from all accounts, he
stayed sane, rational.
He did not come down on the field, rip off his shirt and wave it over his head and get arrested or anything, which I've actually known some people to do. Not me. I'm not looking at you because I've known you to do it, but I have known some people who've done that because I've videoed them doing stuff like that at college games, including college basketball games. And, yeah, I'm talking about Mizzou and K-State when they beat KU. I've seen some pretty wild things on the court. And it's fun. But Mark Pallis, congratulations to him, his team. I didn't believe in them. Did you believe in them?
I didn't think they were going to have enough offense, but their defense was so good.
They don't have enough offense,
it
but
didn't
their
matter.
defense is like otherworldly.
Unbelievable.
Now, I don't think A&M's offense is that good, so I was like, okay, look, they've stopped him, but that A&M quarterback, all flash, no pan, man, he doesn't do it.
Ohio State last night, they looked like.
But that was a win.
Yes.
Okay, Ohio State's good. They got guys.
Yeah.
And that receiving core is unbelievable, and the quarterback's not terrible. So no, I think that's a legitimate deal. But Indiana, my goodness gracious, their coach is supposedly a jerk. Is he a jerk?
He seems like he's a little moody. But all right, we'll move to the Chiefs. Chiefs hangover. We are entering the new year. We are entering the new year with the prospect of a meaningless football game on Sunday. Meaningless unless you care about whether the Chiefs pick 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, or 12th. Those are the 5 possibilities that they can draft.
Is there any way they lose?
I think there is. And I think that it comes down to how they were not very effective moving the ball, even against the Broncos, and most of the fact that game was close was the product of Bo Nix giving them short fields. So certainly the Raiders could.
The only way
it's going to be a pretty incompetent game by both teams, I think.
Do you remember the Christmas Day game 2 years ago?
I do.
Was it 3 years ago, right?
2023, so 2 years ago, but 2 years and a week. 2 years and a week.
Okay. That is the only scenario in which this Raiders team playing their second and third quarterbacks, who one of them might be on the roster next year, probably won't. The only way that team wins this football game is if the Chiefs give them a scoop and score inside the 10-yard line like they did at Arrowhead Stadium, followed by a pick six like 2 plays later. I just don't think as horrible as how weak the Chiefs offense has looked at times since Patrick Mahomes left, and quite frankly since even before that. I just don't. They'd have to turn it over multiple times in their end of the field and hope that the Raiders were good enough to run it in, because the Raiders want the first-round draft pick too. They want the number one
they're in play
pick.
For the number 1 overall pick.
They're right now. They're the favorite to get the number 1 pick in the draft, which they'll waste on another quarterback and they'll fail. But I don't like the idea of tanking, but I can get why the Raiders are tanking, and I can get why the Chiefs are going to play every young player they got, because let's see what they do.
They really haven't played. That's the thing. The Chiefs have not played their young players very much. Brashard Smith played 5 snaps against the Broncos. Jalen Royals played 4 and got 1 passing down opportunity.
He's been a surprise.
Their rookies have
What's
not
going on
played,
with Royals? Because I thought he was a guy that they were going to.
And they've not used him at all. So I think that's the confusing thing. But we put the Chiefs hangover on this topic bar today, not in the sense of what we're about to deal with seeing on Sunday, but more in the fact that we're heading toward a January of no playoff football. And Neal, you remember and recall a lot more years of no playoff football for the Chiefs than I do. But with that being said, what are you going to like? What are you going to be rooting for in the NFL playoffs this January?
It's like the K-State football fan, the KU football fan right now. You weren't in the bowl. K-State opted out of a bowl.
Yeah.
And there's just like the bowls are going on. Do I care? I don't really care. And this is pro football. College football, you can at least, okay, they're in our league, so I'm going to root for ASU. I support your team because they're Big 12. I don't support the SEC except Oklahoma and Missouri. Those are the only two teams I like in the SEC. The rest of them, to me, are evil, and so I don't like them. I don't support them. I don't root for them. I hope the league loses every game except Oklahoma's game and Missouri's game because those are the teams I follow. Those are the teams I root for. I know people at both places. I root for them. But I don't. This is pro football. I mean, unless like Mike Vrabel has always been really nice to deal with to me. When he played in Kansas City for the year or two that he was here, he was great to cover. And then when he got the head coaching job at Tennessee, the first year we were at the Combine, and I'm standing there waiting to do interviews at this. We've got cameras set up and everything, and I'm waiting, and here he comes in, and he's standing there, and he gives me one of these. And so I walk over there, and I shook his hand, and he was nice. He was a head coach. And I'm like, boy, I thought your first head coaching job would be at Ohio State or Oklahoma. And he goes, Oklahoma? I'd never go to Oklahoma. Ohio State I'd go to. And laughed, and he was nice. So yes, he works for Kraft, and Kraft, and now he's the one who bankrolled the cheating thing that was going on up there, presumably. But I don't really like the Patriots. But I nominally root for him. I like him. I mean, can you name somebody? I kind of like the coach at San Diego, at the Chargers.
Jim Harbaugh? I don't find him likable at all.
I dealt with him. I dealt with him when they were getting ready to trade Alex Smith, and he talked to me at the Combine again, just one-on-one, and was really nice and was funny. He was nice. I met him when he was a Player of the Year in January of '95, I think. He was the AFC Player of the Year by virtue of beating the Chiefs in the playoffs. Maybe it was January or February of '96, whenever it was. He came to town for the one-on-one banquet. He was really nice. I mean, so I've had a couple of interactions with him that are really nice. Alex Smith said he was a great guy to play for. He was successful. He won a national championship at Michigan. Might have cheated a little bit, but who doesn't cheat? It's like NASCAR. If you're not cheating, you ain't trying. But so I guess I could kind of root for them. But who else? Who else is there to root for?
I mean,
come on.
The Texans, I think, are pretty easy to root for, given D'Amico Ryans and C.J. Stroud. I think that Jacksonville is a fun story. But I don't know. I think that
maybe Jacksonville. Their owner's terrible. Come on.
The Bears in Chicago.
Now you know what? The Bears. The ownership's terrible there. But they've got Joe
Tooney
from Kansas City.
They've got Joe Tooney.
And they got Joe Tooney's up
Eric
there.
Eric Bieniemy's on coaching staff there.
Yeah, and they got the Mizzou wide receiver.
Luther Burden.
Luther Burden is coming back.
There's a lot of local ties.
And
to the Bears.
Caleb Williams, I root for him because he played at Oklahoma, and I'll tell you what, he can play.
We'll see how the NFL playoffs go. I think it's probably going to be
I can't root for
a lot of Chiefs fans will have.
Don't tell me you're rooting for the Broncos.
No, absolutely not. And I think a lot of Chiefs fans will go into the playoffs on the AFC side with a lot of hate watching.
But I won't
which
watch.
You're not doing because you're
I'll walk into work. I'll be doing a feature, and I'll walk into the station. I'll go, Gabe, what's the score on the Broncos game? That's how I'll follow the Broncos. I won't watch them. Because it breaks my eyes to watch that offense with Bo Nix.
Yes,
I can't do it.
I will. Well, I'm going to enjoy them.
them.
I'm going to enjoy them being incompetent when it happens. All right, the last topic of the day.
You're going to have to carry the water on this one, buddy.
Yeah, you have admitted that you have watched very little college basketball.
I haven't watched any. I didn't get assigned the border war, and so because the Chiefs were playing. And so I haven't watched anything in person, and I barely watched any television.
I've watched plenty of it. KU has, I would say exceeded expectations, given that if you told KU fans going into the year, Darren Peterson is going to play 4 non-conference games, he will leave all 4 of them early on either a minutes restriction or due to injury. What do you think their record is in non-conference? 10-3, I think, would have been much better than anything anyone would have projected. And they even, in their losses, UConn, Duke, and North Carolina, they had flashes of a team that you think is a real contender. They play great defense. The offense is
a work in progress.
Yes, and could be a lot better if Peterson plays, and that's why the topic is here, because Bill Self said today that the explosiveness of Darren Peterson, which I guess has been the question mark all along, is whether his hamstring feels good enough for him to not have to hold back, is trending in the right direction, and KU is expecting to have a fully healthy roster when they play UCF on Saturday in Orlando. I am of the belief, or of the mentality, that I will believe it when I see it. I'll believe that Darren Peterson is back and good when he plays an entire game of college basketball, and in the late stages of the second half, he is not putting his hand up, asking for a sub, and going over to the bench and having the training staff use the Theragun on his hamstring or on his quad for those quad cramps that we've heard so much about. So I'm a work in progress, a wait and see on this.
So I was talking to a basketball person who actually called me. And this is a basketball person, former coach.
Okay.
Knows the area. And called me with a question about kind of TV coverage and stuff. And I said, so what do you think about Darren Peterson? He said, Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid was either
Embiid played a lot more than Peterson so far.
He was either the most – this is a coach, former coach, saying he was either the most gutless person you could ever have, who just basically walked out on his teammates, or he might have been the smartest person given his injury history that's happened subsequent to his decision to pull himself out of the NCAA tournament. We hadn't seen that, and so his take is, you can look at it 2 ways. The fans look at it like, what a horrible thing. The guy didn't, he was healthy enough to play and he didn't play to protect his draft status. And then the other people are like, yeah, he was smart enough to know that I am injury prone. I got a bad back. I'm not sure that I can be 100%. And I don't know that I want to go out and get hurt before the draft. At the time, I've talked to people who were involved with KU who said there were a number of things involved in that, including the fact that Joel Embiid did not grow up in the United States. To him, the NCAA tournament did not hold the same thing that you have when you grow up when you're little and you want March Madness and Selection Sunday. That was kind of new to him. So anyway, he said he thinks there might be a little bit of that going on, that not only do you want to protect Darren Peterson's from pulling a hamstring so badly he can't play anymore. You don't want that to happen. That doesn't help anybody.
Yeah.
But also he's trying to protect his draft status. But his take is he'll be okay, and when he comes back, he needs to be 100%. And if you got him in February, if you can get him for 2 or 3 weeks going into the tournament, that's all you need. If he's 100%, that he's the kind of player that can be that. And that he thinks it could be. He goes in, and another thing he said was, look, Bill Self knows how to coach guys, and he's doing the best he can to get them better so that they hopefully can coexist with him when he comes in. I remember when he came in, Greg Gurley on the radio broadcast was talking about, believe it or not, he's back in the game, but now they got to, what's going is going pretty good. So can they keep playing the way they're playing while also bringing him involved? I know this. I'm shocked that it's gone down like this, but I'm disappointed. But like I said, the way that it goes nowadays, you're judged by what you do in March. It ain't what you did in November or December, and in some cases even January. Is KU going to win the league? They used to dominate. You just penciled them in. It's a different world.
Yeah.
You've got other programs that can play. And, some of these programs, but what you don't want to have happen is what happened to Iowa State last year, where they peak early and they don't play their best basketball. Yeah. They had a couple of key injuries late. You want your best basketball to be played in March, and this ain't March yet, so I'm going to not worry about KU. And look, if there's anybody in the league you're going to trust, right? Kelvin Sampson and Bill Self would be the two coaches that you would defer to. They know how to win.
Yep. We'll see. 1 o'clock Saturday, they start play, UCF. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.